On May 15th, 2026, just days from now, something is happening inside America's most powerful financial institution that most people don't even realize is coming. Jerome Powell, the man who has controlled the US dollar, interest rates, and the financial fate of 330 million Americans for the past 8 years, is walking out the door. And while Wall Street scrambles to figure out what this means, while American investors sit frozen, confused, and paralyzed on the other side of the world in Shanghai, Beijing, and Mumbai, a very different conversation is happening. They're not panicking, they're laughing, because they already knew, and more importantly, they already bought. Silver is sitting at $74 an ounce right now, down nearly 40% from its all-time high of $120 hit just a few months ago. And to the average American, that sounds terrifying. Another crash, another reason to stay away. But here's what they're not telling you on CNBC. Here's what Bloomberg quietly buried in paragraph 11 of a financial report nobody read. The East didn't see $74 silver as a crash. They saw it as a sale. And while American retail investors were panic selling their silver positions in February and March, while Reddit threads were full of people asking, is silver dead? China's institutional buyers were on the other side of every single one of those trades, buying, accumulating, loading up. This is not speculation. This is not a conspiracy theory. The data is in the numbers, and we're going to walk through all of it today. But first, let's talk about what the Fed chair transition actually means for silver, because this is the part that almost nobody is connecting. Kevin Warsh is Trump's pick to replace Powell. He was just confirmed out of the Senate Banking Committee. And the one thing every analyst agrees on, left, right, and center, is that Warsh wants rate cuts. Lower interest rates mean a weaker dollar. A weaker dollar means commodities go up. And silver, sitting at $74, is the most undervalued hard asset on the planet right now, relative to gold, relative to copper, relative to its own industrial demand fundamentals. The gold to silver ratio right now is sitting near historic extremes. Gold is trading above $3,200 an ounce. That means you could buy over 43 ounces of silver for every single ounce of gold. Historically, that ratio has averaged around 60 to 1. And during major bull cycles, 1980, 2011, it compressed all the way down to 30 to 1. If that ratio even partially normalizes, not even to historical lows, just toward the long-term average, silver doesn't go to $80. Silver doesn't go to $90. Silver goes to $120, $150, and beyond. The East understands this math. India imported a record-breaking volume of silver in 2025, over 8,000 tons. China's solar panel industry alone consumed more silver last year than the entire global mining output could comfortably supply. And yet, the price is at $74. How is that possible? That's the question we're going to answer today. And the answer is going to make you rethink everything you thought you knew about how silver prices are actually set and who is setting them. Because here's the uncomfortable truth that Powell's departure is about to make very, very difficult to hide. The paper silver market, the futures contracts, the ETFs, the synthetic positions traded on COMEX, has been operating at leverage ratios that would make a casino operator blush. For every physical ounce of silver sitting in a vault, there are estimated to be anywhere from 100 to 300 paper claims against it. That system worked perfectly fine as long as the Fed was keeping rates high, the dollar was strong, and Eastern demand could be managed and suppressed. But Powell is leaving. Warsh is coming in. Rate cuts are coming, and the East? They've been quietly pulling physical silver out of Western vaults for 18 months. The clock is ticking. Let's go back to January 2026, because that's where this story really begins. Silver hits $120 an ounce, an all-time high. Every financial news outlet in America runs the headline. CNBC brings on 3 guests in a row who say the same thing. Bubble, overbought, time to sell. And Americans listened. Between January and March, retail silver ETF outflows in the United States were some of the largest recorded in a 3-month period. Regular American investors, the same people who bought silver at $28, $35, $45, dumped their positions near the top, then watched in confusion as the price corrected, convinced they had made the right call. But here is what those CNBC guests didn't tell you. While American retail was selling, JP Morgan's institutional desk was not. The large commercial traders on COMEX, the banks, the funds, the entities that actually move this market, were not reducing their exposure to silver. They were restructuring it. And in Asia, there was no selling at all. The Shanghai Gold Exchange, which handles physical silver and gold settlement in China, reported record physical delivery volumes in Q1 2026. Not paper, not futures. Physical metal leaving vaults and going into the hands of institutional buyers, sovereign wealth funds, and in China's case, direct state-affiliated purchasing entities. India told a similar story. The Indian government, after years of treating silver primarily as a jewelry commodity, has been quietly reclassifying silver in its strategic reserve framework. The word remonetization has started appearing in policy documents, not in the headlines, in the footnotes, in the annexures that nobody reads, but we read them. And here is what those documents say between the lines. India is preparing for a world where the US dollar is no longer the unquestioned reserve currency, where gold and silver play a larger role in settling international trade, where holding physical metal is not a relic of the past. It's insurance against a future that is arriving faster than anyone in Washington wants to admit. Now, let's talk about the industrial side of this equation. Because silver is not just a monetary metal, it is the most electrically conductive element on the periodic table, and the modern world runs on electricity. Every solar panel produced anywhere in the world contains silver. The average photovoltaic solar panel uses approximately 20 milligrams of silver per cell. At utility scale, the kind of solar farms being built right now across China, India, and Southeast Asia, we are talking about thousands of tons of silver consumed every single year just for green energy infrastructure. In 2025, solar alone consumed an estimated 232 million ounces of silver globally. That is roughly 25% of total annual silver mine supply, consumed by one industry. Add electronics, add electric vehicles, add 5G infrastructure, add medical devices, add water purification systems. The Silver Institute, not a fringe blog, the industry's own official research body, projected a structural silver supply deficit of over 200 million ounces in 2025, the fourth consecutive year of deficit, meaning demand exceeded supply for the fourth year in a row. In any normal commodity market, 4 consecutive years of demand outstripping supply would send prices to the moon. Basic economics. Scarcity drives price. But silver is not a normal commodity market because silver has a second layer, the paper market. And the paper market has, for decades, allowed large financial institutions to suppress the price of physical silver by flooding the market with synthetic supply. Futures, contracts, options, ETFs backed by fractional reserves. Here's the number that should shock you. The COMEX silver open interest, meaning the total number of outstanding contracts representing silver that technically should exist in physical form, regularly represents over 1 billion ounces of silver. 1 billion ounces. The entire global annual silver mine production is approximately 800 million ounces. Read that again. The paper claims on silver exceed the entire world's annual mining output every year, consistently. This is the system that Powell presided over for 8 years. A system where the dollar was strong, rates were high, and the mechanism that kept silver artificially suppressed was functioning smoothly. But Kevin Warsh wants rate cuts. And rate cuts, in an environment of active war in the Middle East, record U.S. government debt, and 4 consecutive years of physical silver deficits, do not keep that system functioning smoothly. They break it. And when that paper market breaks, when the holders of those billion-plus ounces of paper silver demand physical delivery and the vaults cannot provide it, the price discovery that follows will not look like a 10% move. It will not look like a 20% move. It will look like 2011, when silver went from $18 to $49 in 8 months. Except this time, the fundamentals are 10 times stronger and the Eastern demand is 10 times larger. The East knew this was coming. That is why they bought at $74. Let's talk about Kevin Warsh for a moment, because the mainstream financial media is covering this Fed chair transition as a political story, a Trump story, a drama about independence and interest rates. But the precious metals market is watching something completely different. Warsh is 56 years old. He served on the Federal Reserve Board from 2006 to 2011, which means he was inside the room during the 2008 financial crisis. He watched what happened when liquidity dried up, when confidence collapsed, when the entire Western financial system came within 72 hours of a complete freeze. And what did silver do during that period? It initially dropped, as it always does in a liquidity crisis, when institutions sell everything to raise cash. Then it went from $9 in late 2008 to $49 in April 2011. A 444% move in less than 3 years. Warsh knows this history intimately. More importantly, Trump knows this history. And Trump has made one thing crystal clear throughout his second term. He wants lower interest rates. He wants a weaker dollar. He has publicly, repeatedly, sometimes aggressively pressured the Federal Reserve to cut rates. A weaker dollar is not a side effect of Trump's agenda. It is the agenda. And here's the thing about a weak dollar policy that nobody on television connects to silver. Every single time in modern history that the United States has pursued deliberate dollar weakness, silver has outperformed gold, not matched it. Outperformed it. In the 1970s, when Nixon closed the gold window and the dollar entered its first major devaluation cycle, silver went from $1.40 to $50. Gold went up 24 times. Silver went up 35 times. In the 2000s, when Greenspan kept rates at 1% and the dollar index fell from 120 to 72, Gold tripled, silver quadrupled. In the post-2008 QE era, gold went from $700 to $1,800. Silver went from $9 to $49. The pattern is consistent across 5 decades of data. When the dollar weakens, silver wins. When silver wins, it wins bigger than gold. And right now, with Powell walking out on May 15th, with Warsh walking in with a rate cut mandate, with the dollar already under pressure from trade tensions and Middle East conflict, we're at the beginning of that cycle again. But this time, there's a variable that did not exist in any of those previous cycles: China. In the 1970s, China was not a factor in global commodity markets. In the 2000s, China was emerging. In the 2010s, China was growing. In 2026, China is the largest consumer of silver on the planet, larger than the United States and Europe combined. And China is not just consuming silver industrially. China is accumulating silver strategically. Here is a number that should reframe everything you think you know about this market. The People's Bank of China, China's central bank, has been on a gold buying spree that is now well documented. They have added over 1,000 tons of gold to their official reserves since 2022. That is public record. What is less documented, what gets almost zero coverage in Western financial media, is the parallel accumulation happening at the provincial and institutional level in China's silver market. State-affiliated enterprises, provincial investment funds, government-linked commodity traders. They are not reporting these purchases in the same way the central bank reports gold, which means the true scale of Chinese silver accumulation is almost certainly larger than any publicly available number suggests. And India is not far behind. India's silver imports in 2025 crossed 8,000 tons, a number so large that it represents approximately 1/3 of total global silver mine output. One country, 1 year, 1/3 of global supply. Where is that silver going? Some of it is jewelry, some of it is electronics manufacturing. But a significant and growing portion is going into investment demand. Physical bars and coins held by a population of 1.4 billion people who have historically trusted hard assets over paper currency. This is the part of the story that is invisible to the average American investor, because American financial media covers American markets, American sentiment, American retail flows. They are not covering the fact that 2.8 billion people across China and India are moving in a direction that is fundamentally, structurally bullish for physical silver, regardless of what happens on COMEX, regardless of what the paper price says on any given Tuesday. Now let's connect all of this back to the date that matters. May 15th, 2026, Powell's last day. On that day, or very close to it, Kevin Warsh will take the chair. He will inherit an economy facing stagflation risk, oil prices elevated due to the Iran conflict, inflation not fully tamed, unemployment beginning to tick upward as tariff impacts flow through the supply chain. Warsh faces an impossible situation: cut rates to support growth and risk reigniting inflation. Hold rates and risk a recession that Trump will blame on him personally, loudly, and probably on Truth Social within the first week. Either path is bullish for silver. If Warsh cuts, dollar weakens, real rates fall, silver surges. If Warsh holds, recession fears grow, safe haven demand spikes, silver surges. There's no scenario in the current macro environment where silver at $74 makes fundamental sense 12 months from now. The East figured this out months ago. That is why the smart money, the patient money, the money that thinks in years, not days, loaded up while American retail was panic selling. And that brings us to the most important question of this entire video. Where does silver go from here? Let's talk numbers, real numbers, not hope, not hype, data. Bank of America's head of metals research, Michael Widmer, has a published price target for silver in 2026, $300 an ounce. That is not a fringe prediction from a YouTube channel. That is a formal published research note from one of the largest financial institutions in the United States. Citi, another Wall Street giant, has a published silver target of $150 for 2026. UBS sees silver pushing back toward $100 in the near term before any meaningful correction. Even the most conservative institutional forecasts, the ones that assume no Fed rate cuts, no dollar weakness, no escalation in the Middle East, still see silver returning to triple digits before the end of this year. Now, silver is at $74. Do the math yourself. From $74 to $100 is a 35% gain. From $74 to $150 is a 103% gain. From $74 to $309. If Bank of America's thesis plays out, that is a 317% gain from current levels. When was the last time your savings account offered you 317%? When was the last time your bond portfolio offered you 103%? This is the conversation that the East has been having at every level, from institutional fund managers in Shanghai to middle-class families in Mumbai stacking physical silver coins in their homes. And this is the conversation that most of America is completely missing. But let's be honest about the risks, because this channel does not do hype. We do analysis. Risk number 1, the dollar strengthens unexpectedly. If Warsh comes in and surprises markets by being more hawkish than expected, holding rates higher for longer, the dollar could rally and pressure silver in the near term. This is a real risk. It is also, given the current debt trajectory of the United States government, a temporary one. You cannot run $2 trillion annual deficits and maintain a strong dollar forever. The math does not allow it. Risk number 2, a global recession crushes industrial demand. Silver's industrial component means it is not purely a safe haven. If global manufacturing contracts sharply, solar installations slow, EV production drops, that affects demand. However, and this is critical, even in the 2008 recession, silver's initial drop was followed by a 444% recovery. Industrial demand weakness creates buying opportunities. It does not create permanent bear markets in silver. Risk number 3, paper market manipulation continues. This is the risk that keeps silver suppressed the longest. As long as large institutions can flood COMEX with synthetic paper supply, the physical price discovery mechanism remains broken. But here is what is different in 2026 versus 2016 versus 2006. Eastern exchanges, particularly in Shanghai, are increasingly settling silver in physical terms. Every ounce that leaves a Western vault and moves east reduces the paper market's ability to suppress price. The physical drain is real, it is ongoing, and it is accelerating. So what should you actually do with this information? This is not financial advice. I'm not your financial advisor. You need to do your own research and make your own decisions based on your own situation. But here is what the data says. Here is what the institutional positioning says. Here is what 8 years of Fed policy history, 4 years of physical silver deficits, and the largest Eastern demand surge in recorded history says. Silver at $74 in May 2026, with a new Fed chair walking in with a rate cut mandate, with the gold to silver ratio at historic extremes, with China and India absorbing 1/3 of global mine supply between them, is not a broken commodity. It is a coiled spring. And the trigger, Powell's departure, Warsh's arrival, rate cuts on the horizon, is already in motion. The East knew this was coming 18 months ago. They positioned accordingly. The question now is not whether silver moves. The question is whether you understand why it moves before it does, or after, because after is always more expensive. This is OG from the Asian guy. Do your research. Question everything. And remember, invest with logic, not hype. OG out.